Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Joe Garcia, and I'm going to be talking with our good friend here, Paul Garcia of Project Spurs. We're going to be talking about DeMar DeRozan's 2020 NBA All Star snub. So let's get right to it, Paul. DeMar DeRozan's having a great season for the San Antonio Spurs. He's having an NBA caliber season for the Spurs. Unfortunately, the Spurs have kind of been a little lackluster this season. So I don't know, maybe
hmm
that was a contributing factor as far as their record, how consistent they've been throughout the season. But I got to tell you, DeMar DeRozan has been one of the most consistent Spurs throughout the season. And as of late, in the absence of LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan's points per game have actually gone up. So he's been stellar the last couple of games in the absence of LaMarcus. I know he kind of made a push right there, especially with the NBA All Star Game right around the corner. But unfortunately, it just didn't seem like whatever he did was good enough to satisfy the coaches. You had other people getting into the Western Conference reserves. Namely, my big issue was Chris Paul. If I look at if I look on paper and I look at the stats, Chris Paul has had a not so much of a good season as DeMar DeRozan has had. Stats wise, as far as points per game go, Nikola Jokic was another one. Nikola Jokic, the Joker, yes, he's a big defender. He can get up there on the court. Great, with the ball as far as passing goes as well. He can shoot the three. Again, his points per game were a little bit lower than DeMar DeRozan. So go ahead and shed some light on this. I mean, we're confused. We're a little bit disappointed. Why didn't DeMar
hmm
get in?
Yeah, I think for one, I think the expectations had to be tempered down a little bit, just like kind of expecting it. I think the hardest thing for Spurs fans and even for us in media is expecting a Spur to get in. This is the first time I think it's happened since 1997. So we kind of just expect, even if Timmy's not here, Tony's not here, Manu, even Kawhi, leaving. It's expected that a Spur would be there, but DeRozan's not. And it's because partially it's the team's play. A lot of it, it's that's the fact that the Spurs really haven't made a lot of ground and a lot of gains. They've kind of been stuck out of the playoff bubble for the majority of the season. I know that what really hurt him back in November was that 8-game losing streak. That obviously is a huge hit on the Spurs' record. And then even after they started playing better basketball in December, in January they struggled again, where they finished the month 7-8, and DeRozan's playing really well. He's for basketball like stat nerds. He's like a really efficient player where he's really changed his game to shooting mainly only at the free throw line and only in the paint. He's obviously creating with his assisting and getting people open. He doesn't shoot the three, we know that, but still, at least he's not taking it since he can't shoot it. And he's kind of gone away a little bit from the mid range. He only goes to the mid range jumper if he absolutely needs to in a possession. But his knock is defense, and that's kind of what happened. Is like the Spurs are still in the 20s defensively. They've made no gains there. And it's not only his fault on defense. Obviously, he has Bryn Forbes out there next to him, and then he'll have Marco Bellinelli and just some other players too out on defense. But the Spurs just haven't made any ground. And I'm actually not opposed to Chris Paul. I think for me, the person that I have an issue with a little bit. I mean, honestly, Joe, I can't fault who the coaches picked. As far as it's because it's the guards. Just me as a basketball fan. I'm never going to be a proponent of giving somebody who's on a losing team an all star bid. So I really don't feel like it's fair like that Brandon Ingram got in because I know that he's put up some really good stats as well. But the Pelicans, aren't a winning team right now. Whereas everybody else that got picked, they're all on playoff teams, and that's why I'm okay with them, except Lillard. But Lillard too. I think there's that media landscape of like kind of looking at him as like an MVP type player because that's the kind of player he's been for the last few seasons. So maybe he still has like that kind of respect amongst like journalists or even fans, and that's why they maybe they still see him as one of those elite players. But I mean the Blazers are worse than the Spurs. So really I can't fault the voters for not putting DeRozan in because again he's on a losing team. But then there's some players I do have some issues with. One stat that I look at though is what is your net rating when you're on the floor, and according to Cleaning the Glass, I mean, out of the guys that got in ahead of DeRozan, everybody was really good. Lillard plus 12.4 when he's on the floor of the Blazers. Donovan Mitchell, Jazz are plus 5.1. Chris Paul, the Thunder are a plus 13.3 points per 100. Even Russell Westbrook. So Russell Westbrook's the one with the negative rating, minus 1.6 points per 100. Here's the problem for the Spurs though. For DeRozan, when he's out on the floor, the Spurs are a minus 9.3 points per 100 possessions. And again, his offense is really good. He does so much good for the offense, but but his defense when he's out there, and just the fact that his teammates too aren't helping him in that matter, make it look like when he's out on the floor, they're just losing their minutes. And we've seen that a lot. The starters have fixed their problem of kind of falling behind early, but for a good 2 or 3 months of the season, we knew that every single game the Stars fall behind by 10, and then here comes the bench, and they have to bail them out. And so that's going to take a hit on both DeRozan and LaMarcus as the team leaders. The fact that they have these minus type numbers when they're out on the floor.
Yeah, you had brought up an interesting stat there. When DeMar DeRozan's not on the court, the Spurs are over. They're 8 points worse per 100 possessions when he's not there, which means when he's out there on the court, he's been the MVP for the Spurs this season. If he wasn't for DeMar DeRozan out there, this team could have an even worse record. Maybe they won't even win the 20, 21, or 23 games that they have right now. So he's been the consistent player. He's been one of these guys who's really performed at a high level all season long. Even more so than one LaMarcus Aldridge, who's been a little bit inconsistent and sometimes goes MIA during big games. But I think that has to do more with matchups than anything. But getting back to the subject of DeMar DeRozan and this snub, the only silver lining that I can go away with, should I say, from the whole thing is at least he's going to get rest. DeMar DeRozan, and you probably have the stats there in front of you, he's been one of the Spurs who's played the most minutes this season. I mean, he's been out there 30-plus minutes, sometimes, playing the whole game, really getting out for any rest. And it takes, that wear and tear on your body. So I'm glad that at least he gets rest. Yes, I'm disappointed and I'm sad that we're not going to have a Spur in the NBA All-Star game, which has gone back all the way to 1997, which is the last year that we didn't have a Spur in the NBA All-Star game. So this 23-year tradition that we have is all but broken now. So that's broken, but hey, at least you know what? The team is going to get much needed rest. I know that I'm going to be still watching the festivities that are going to unfold on TV. I know that you're probably going to take them in as well. But, it's one of these things that happens. I wish that maybe Lonnie could have gotten in. Maybe he would have gotten in maybe to compete in the slam dunk contest, but
oh yeah, that would have been fun. Yeah,
that would have been fun. Not that he deserves to be in the big game by any means, but at least, it would have been fun to see him maybe in the Rising Stars or maybe in the slam dunk contest. That would have been exciting to see. I mean, what are your thoughts on Lonnie maybe getting into one of those things?
I don't think have they announced who's actually going to participate in those events? Because I mean it'd be cool, like you said. I don't think they have officially yet. You're right, because like today we just barely got word that Aaron Gordon was going to participate in the dunk contest. So I would be really happy to see him in the dunk contest. That would be really fun to see what Lonnie can do out there. We've obviously seen him do some spectacular dunks out in the open court with the Spurs this season. So I would really be amped up for that, because for me, the dunk contest, the 3-point shootout, the skills challenge on that Saturday night, I really don't watch those anymore. They're just not as exciting for me. But if it's a player that I'm more familiar with, like Lonnie, because I watch all his games and I know the potential he has to get up there and do some extraordinary dunks, I would actually be really excited. And I'd make sure to watch on All-Star Saturday night if he did participate. So I'm really cool with that. I wanted to go back real quick to the snubs. I think one team who should be kind of upset here is the Memphis Grizzlies. Now I know they have a lot of young guys, but I mean, for them to be a playoff team right now and not get an All-Star, I think that's a fan base that I would be. I would be upset.
That's sacrilege right now, because they've been playing at a high level. They've gone on a little skid, recently, but they were still playing at a high level. And they're a young team. They're exciting to watch, and I think they've done a great job with the pieces that they have. They're in a rebuilding year. They were in a rebuilding year. Now that they have these young athletic players out there, they've looked great. So I'm with you on that one, man.
Yeah, and it's more of the thing where like a lot of times the NBA, especially the Western Conference, they don't like to put a rookie in the All-Star game. It's very rare that even like somebody like Luka Doncic didn't get selected as an All-Star last year in year one. And but I mean, yeah, so that's why I think that it's tough for them to either put John Moran or Jaren Jackson Jr. in the All-Star game. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of just where my thoughts are at. I mean, I'm actually excited to watch the All-Star game this year because of those new rules that just came out today, where they're gonna kind of change up the way they score the quarters for the first three, and then whatever teams, wherever the teams lie at the end, they're going to make it whoever gets 24 points first. That's going to be a little interesting.
Yeah, let me name some other snubs that didn't get into the reserves at all. Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, Jaylen Brown. Of course, we already went over DeMar DeRozan. But what
Hmm.
about Devin Booker, man? This kid always
Oh,
seems to ball
yeah.
out, but he never,
Well,
really seems to get in
yeah.
there.
And see, like I could totally understand. So there was Sham Sharani just put out a tweet a while ago, right before you and I started recording this, where the Phoenix GM I forgot his name, Jones, well, he used to be an NBA player, something Jones. He basically said, Devin Booker should be an All-Star. So you kind of see him doing that, kind of pitching to the media, hey, this guy should have been an All-Star, kind of going to bat for his guy. That he did get selected, and I agree with you. I would be upset too as a Suns fan because again, why is I know Lillard's really good too, but like why is Lillard in there and he's on a losing team? Why is Brandon Ingram in there and he's on a losing team? And why isn't our guy Devin Booker out there? Because I mean that's kind of the case. Like it's like these guys are putting up extraordinary numbers. They're really good team leaders. Their plus minus is really good. But again, they're not playoff teams right now as we stand heading into the All-Star game. So I could see that. I think one interesting wrinkle to watch is to watch the severity of Luka Doncic's ankle injury, because if he does have to miss the All-Star game, well then the commissioner would name him a reserve, and that's maybe where you might see a little bit of sliver of hope for either DeMar DeRozan or Devin Booker, or any of those players that got snubbed. Which I think those are the two players we're probably thinking about right now. Or if the commissioner needs to name another All-Star, I think it's either going to be Booker or DeRozan, one of those two players.
Yeah, I'm particular to DeRozan though, being a Spurs fan. But I got nothing but love for Devin Booker. He's been a great young player for the course over the course of the last couple years, and he's a fifth year guard. He's averaging somewhere around 27.1 points. He has 6.4 assists, 4.1 rebounds, and he's shooting over 51% from the field. I mean, those aren't numbers
Yeah.
that you're gonna, shake your head at and say, "Oh, he didn't deserve it." He did, just like DeMar and some of the other players that we just named as well. But I think that maybe they need to do something as far as having a better voting system. That you need
Oh,
to get
I mean,
people in there.
I've been on there for you. I've been in one of the people who's. It's almost like the playoffs. It's like why give the Eastern Conference certain seeds or below 500 teams, and it's going to kind of be the case for the West this year with the 8 seed. It looks like. But yeah, I've been about that too. It's just put the best 30 players or 24 players, whatever the number is. Like just don't make it about conferences, because I mean I can definitely tell I would put DeRozan and Devin Booker and some of these guys that missed it out west over some of these players out east that got picked for the All-Star game easily. I mean so I think that's always been an issue, and I do wish they would change it where it would just be the best players in the NBA. The best 24 players, whatever the number they want to make it. I agree with you wholeheartedly, just like they do with the All NBA teams.
Yeah, there was one other thing that I wanted to point out real quick. What's going on with this NBA All Star game? They wanted to pay tribute to Kobe, of course, but the
Hmm.
way that they released everything on Twitter earlier, I got to tell
Hmm.
you, man, that was just so confusing to me. I didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah, it was to me too. I got the press release, and I didn't want to just throw it out there on Twitter because I actually had to understand it myself. I had to literally like
I
read
had
each
to
little
look at
blurb.
it.
Yeah, there's like 6 little blurbs in it, and it tells you like each little rule and stuff. And I was just like, and by the time I got to it, I was like, okay, this is interesting. It gets me excited. I actually want to watch it. So yeah, so the basic idea is you're gonna play three quarters, and you're gonna start at 0 every quarter. So let's say the first quarter ends at 24-20, and then the next quarter it's like 28-26, and then the next quarter it's like 25-23. So then what they'll do is heading into the fourth, they're gonna add all the scores up, and whoever's winning between the West, I mean, Team LeBron and Team Giannis, they're going to put those exact numbers up. So let's say it's like Team Giannis 73, or I mean, not 70. Let's say it's Team Giannis 100 and Team LeBron 90. Okay. So now whoever gets to the next 24 points is going to win in terms of like Team Giannis needs to get to 124, whereas Team LeBron, they're only at 90. They didn't make a huge gain. Not only they got to also from 90 get all the way up to 124. So that's kind of how it's going to work. The team that has a huge deficit going into the fourth is going to really be disadvantaged in this new system. But I honestly think it's cool. I just like that they're honoring Kobe in some different way, and they're also still making the All-Star game a little bit more interesting. I just like, yeah, like I said, I just like that it's going to be a little bit more competitive, especially in the fourth if we got a close matchup heading into the fourth.
Yeah, I like that. It was just confusing. I'm like, what do you got
Yeah.
to do? What are you guys doing out here? In the fourth quarter, you got to tally up everything from the first three. I'm just like, carry the one.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude. I mean, I felt like that guy from that little gift that they used. What was that movie called?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
you
the
know,
yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking
The
about.
Hangover.
Yeah,
Where you see all those
the Hangover.
numbers
Yeah,
flying around. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
That
I like
was
that one.
me. That was me. I'm like, what? What are they
Yeah,
doing? But
yeah,
regardless, I just feel like we just gotta support the team moving forward as far. I'm talking about the Spurs. Even though we didn't get somebody named into the NBA All-Star game, the Spurs still have an inkling of hope where they can make the playoffs. I believe that I had put something out. They had 36 games left on the season. Now, with the win yesterday, it's 35 games. So now the team has to go 22-13 for the rest of the season in order to get to 43 wins. Now, if they, to
Oof,
me, the
so
magic number is 43 wins, and that's
uh-huh.
the bare minimum
Yeah.
wins that might be needed to make that eighth spot in the West. You think that's doable given the juggernaut that's coming up with the rodeo road trip, plus the way the rest of the season is going to pan out? What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I'm not, with the rotations the way they are, I'm not optimistic that they're going to even get close to that. I think, I mean, 43, so like, I would say maybe like 39, 40 is like the best, like with the current rotations that I see right now. I just think, I'm a huge, me, Joe, I'm a huge stats guy, a huge data guy, and sample size is big for me. And we have so much data now that these rotations, these pairings sometimes on the court aren't working. They're just not working. The Spurs they played some really good basketball in December, and then even early in January, they beat some really good teams, and it doesn't matter. They revert back to where they were, and again, it's because they've been stuck in the 20s on defense. They never make improvement on that side of the ball. I know the offense has done a great job since December, where LaMarcus started shooting threes. Like I complimented DeRozan, where he started to attack the basket and get to the free throw line and create for everybody. So the offense is becoming more modern, and I really like that. It's still really efficient. They're in the top 10. It's the defense, though. I mean, they've made no gains there. I know they're slowly starting to get better in the paint, but again, they're still sacrificing all those threes. And so until I see some sort of progress defensively, which I have not seen now for 40 plus games, I just not as optimistic on this team right now. And a young team like the Grizzlies is they have they have more I guess you could say like growth and like room for improvement, because again, these are young guys that are getting thrown out in the fire and getting their chance to really improve in John Moran, Jaren Jackson Jr., some of their young guys like Dylan Brooks, and they're getting that experience. Whereas the Spurs, some of their guys are either like Lonnie's constantly not getting his minutes. We're starting to finally see Derek White and DeJounte play together. And so it's kind of like just a different, for me, the rotations have kind of told me that it just, I don't believe in the data that this team can get that much better of getting to like that 43 win range.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to see what's gonna happen as the season pans out. But I think it's doable. But like you
Hmm.
said, they're very inconsistent on the defensive front, and
Yeah.
hopefully they can get better. I saw some improvements in this last game against the Jazz, but there goes the problem. Why does this Spurs team get up for big games, against the upper echelon teams in the West or even in the East, but then they can't dispatch a team like the Chicago Bulls? They have
Yeah.
problems with teams who
Well,
have a below 500 record, much like the San Antonio
hmm.
Spurs do, but they can beat teams like the Bucks. So
Yep.
there's your
Yep.
inconsistency for everyone to see. So I'm right with you on there. I'm gonna go ahead and give that glimmer of hope to the fans. I'm gonna hang on to it as well. The Spurs have a slight possibility of making the playoffs, and if they do, I'd be ecstatic. I would think they exceeded all expectations. If they can make the playoffs, but if they don't, I don't think any of us would be extremely disappointed. You know what I mean? It was to
No,
be
no,
expected.
no.
So,
Yeah, no, I don't think this was to be expected. Well, I mean, it depends too, because like the Vegas and stuff, and some of those other ones, even like the team, they expected this team to be a playoff team, but
yeah.
like we're like more so like the statistical models, the math models, they did not see this team as they saw this team going exactly as they are right now, and so that's kind of where you're seeing, how do we evaluate this team? Because I think you're right, Joe, where it's like last year's team is like, and like their full potential is kind of hidden in there somewhere, but it just never comes out night to night. Like you said, they beat the Jazz, they can beat the Bucks, the Raptors, all these different teams. But then on the, they lost to Phoenix, then they lost to the Bulls, like you just mentioned. So it's there, that really good team somewhere hidden in there, but it just, like Paul mentioned, they're just so inconsistent. It just doesn't come out. And again, I attribute that a lot of that to the defense, and with the rotations, it's just not going to happen. It hasn't been happening, should I say?
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and bring this special episode of the Project Spurs, bringing you some breaking news here of DeMar DeRozan getting that 2020 NBA All Star snub. But before we go ahead and end this, where can they get a hold of you on social media and follow you and interact with you?
Oh, I'm over at on Twitter. I'm at Paul Garcia NBA, and then I also host the Spurs Cast over on ProjectSpurs.com.
Yeah. He hosts a little podcast called the Spurs Cast, which is one of the longest running or the longest running Spurs podcast in the nation. So make sure you definitely go check out the latest
Yeah,
episode of the Spurs Cast. And also check out all the great content that they have going on as far as Spurs coverage goes at projectspurs.com. And also go ahead and check out projectspursnetwork.com for all your local sports coverage in the San Antonio area, including San Antonio Rampage, and the San Antonio FC, which our good friend Steven Anderson covers extensively. So make sure you go and check all that out. And you can also check out me and my little show that I do called Two Shots Podcast. And I'm also available on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So go ahead and check me out at Two Shots Podcast, all spelled out TWOSHOTS Podcast. And that's about all the time we have for today. So for Paul Garcia, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you all for watching. And make sure that you go ahead and follow Project Spurs on Twitter as well. Not just Paul and me, but Project Spurs on Twitter. I forgot to mention that. So that's about all the
yeah,
time we
for
have for
sure.
tonight's episode. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you all later. We're out. Peace.